Today, we're going to be exploring our state parks and wooded areas. We're going to be looking into some very, very strange missing people's cases. Joining me today is Elize Alexis. Please check her out if you enjoyed her work. Now, let's get into this. Bessie and Glen Hyde were honeymooning in northern Arizona at the Grand Canyon when they vanished. They were traveling down the Colorado River by scow in October of 1928 and planning to boat through the Grand Canyon. Bessie would have been the first woman ever to do this successfully. Glen ran through tough rivers before, but Bessie was boating before their disappearance, who said they got the feeling that Bessie wanted to turn back, but Glen was pushing her on. If they completed the trip successfully, they would go on to a paid lecture tour. So, this trip was more than just fun. There was money at stake. Cut to several months later, the Hyde's boat was discovered that winter, seemingly undisturbed. It was upright and full of supplies, but the couple were gone. There are many theories about what happened to the Hydes. Did they disembark and try a too difficult side hike? Did they have an argument that overturned into violence? Or were they abducted? There are conflicting reports about what happened to the Hydes, and more than one Bessie Hyde sighting in the years that followed.
Number 2. Louie Lee Prince. Louie Lee Prince is best known as the inventor who shot the first moving pictures on film using a single-lens camera. His revolutionary technology effectively paved the way for today's motion picture industry. Prince's groundbreaking work was years ahead of contemporaries such as Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers. However, before Prince could publicly demonstrate his creation, he mysteriously disappeared. In 1890, he boarded a train to Paris and was never seen again. While it is not known what truly happened, many speculate that he met his demise one way or another on the train. Both French police and the Scotland Yard carried out an exhaustive search of the train and along the tracks were his body and luggage. Neither was ever found, and the case remains unsolved to this day.
Number 3. There's an area in Green Mountain National Forest, near Glastonbury Mountain, in Vermont's long trail that believers in the paranormal call Bennington Triangle. The area got this name because of a handful of mysterious disappearances, which occurred between 1945 and 1950. Paranormal author Joseph A. Citro coined the term because of the supposedly supernatural circumstances surrounding these vanishes. Paula Weldon was the second person to go missing in that area of Green Mountain National Forest during this period. 18-year-old Weldon was a college student who set out on a long trail in December 1946. She was dressed for walking and not a long hike, wearing jeans, a coat, and sneakers. Her attire implied that she planned to return before dark. When temperatures were supposed to dip below freezing, Weldon told her roommate that she was taking a long walk, and she never returned. Several people spotted her as she hitchhiked her way to the trail and walked to the trailhead. When Weldon didn't come back by dark, her roommate let the school know, and the search began. Classes were suspended so students could help with the search. The process was disorganized at first, until Weldon's father called in favors from police in 2 surrounding states. Unfortunately, the search didn't pan out, and frustrated family and friends had their own theories about what had happened to her. Did Weldon run off with a boyfriend? Was she abducted or committed suicide? Or did she die of exposure because of her inappropriate attire? No one discovered her body, so her disappearance remains a mystery. There's a rumor that this area of the Long Trail is home to a creature called the Bennington Monster. Could this Sasquatch-like animal have something to do with the disappearance? Regardless of whether people think these disappearances are natural or supernatural in nature, the cases do have a few things in common. The missing tended to be alone when they disappeared or separated from their group by at least 50 yards. Bad weather and chaotic, disorganized searches are also a running theme in these cases. You can believe that these were accidents, abductions, or something even more sinister. But regardless, there are lessons in these stories about how to stay safer when you're out in the woods.
Number 4. Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce, a Civil War veteran, authored the seminal short story An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, was well known to have a strange obsession with death. At the age of 71, seeking excitement and adventure, he rode his horse across the Rio Grande during the height of the Mexican Revolution in 1913, when he simply vanished. He was presumed to have been killed by revolutionaries or kidnapped, but some speculated he may have committed suicide or simply gone underground. The last anyone heard from Bierce was on December 26, 1913, while in Chihuahua, Mexico. He wrote a letter to his friend, and in the closing lines he penned, "As to me, I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination," a seemingly chilling prediction of his mysterious demise.
Number 5. Dennis Martin was on a camping trip near the Tennessee-North Carolina state line with his family in the summer of 1969. It was an annual Father's Day tradition. All of the men in Martin's family headed to the Smoky Mountain National Park to camp and hike. Dennis and his brother had planned a prank on the adults. They were each going to jump out on different sides of the campsite to scare them. It's a pretty practical prank, and should have ended with some startled shouts and then a lot of laughter. The laughter ended quickly, though, when they realized that Dennis was missing. Family, park rangers, and hikers all spread out to search for Dennis almost immediately, but he was nowhere to be found. That evening, there was heavy rainfall, which is bad news when you're trying to track a missing little boy. The search for Martin became the largest in National Park Service history. One of the people searching was Park Ranger Dwight McCarter, who had successfully tracked down hundreds of missing people, including young children. McCarter was a seasoned tracker, and he was struck by the complete lack of any sort of tracks. Dennis seemed to have disappeared completely, leaving no trace at all. His disappearance is still a mystery. One possible lead that searchers didn't follow was a report from another family that evening that the boy went missing. The Key family allegedly heard a scream, and they saw a bear man with something slung over its shoulder that looked like it could have been a small child. We'll never know whether this was related to Martin's disappearance or not, but it's definitely a very interesting case.
Number 6. The crew of merchant vessel Jowita. The merchant vessel Jowita was bound for the Tokelau Islands in 1955. When it didn't arrive as scheduled, search parties began to circulate to find the missing vessel. After 5 weeks, the merchant vessel Jowita was found adrift in the South Pacific, partially submerged. Of the 16 members of crew and 9 passengers, there was no trace. The ship's 3 lifeboats were also missing. After searching the empty ship, it was noted that the electric clocks on board had all stopped at 10:25, and the switches for the cabin lighting and navigation lights were on, implying that whatever had occurred happened at night. The ship's logbook, sextant, mechanical chronometer, other navigational equipment, and firearms were gone. Search team found a doctor's bag on the deck containing a stethoscope, a scalpel, and 4 lengths of blood-stained bandages. Investigators could find no definitive explanations for what may have happened to the crew of the vessel. The extreme buoyancy of the ship made sinking nearly impossible. So why had the crew had not remained on board and waited for help? Nobody knows. The fate of those on board the merchant vessel Jowita has entered naval history and remains a mystery to this very day.
Number 7. Douglas Legg and some of his family was heading out for a hike in the Adirondack Forest Preserves in the Santa Tani Preserve, when his uncle spotted poison ivy and told Legg to put on long pants to protect himself. The family's cabin was a short, straight shot from where they were, but Legg never returned. Unlike a lot of kids who have gone missing in national parks, Legg was very familiar with these woods. His family owned the cabin where they stayed and described Legg as a mini woodsman because they all hiked together so often. Legg's disappearance sparked one of the southern Adirondacks' largest search and rescue missions, with more than 600 people searching the woods. But like David Gonzalez, Legg left no trail. Unlike the Gonzalez case, though, rescuers used dogs in their search. Some accounts describe dogs following Leg's scent for over 30 miles or 48 kilometers through difficult terrain on the trail. How could a young child have traveled alone for such a distance? Some researchers reported seeing bear-like tracks near the site. While black bears do drag their prey to cover, dragging someone 30 miles over difficult terrain seems unusual. The family became desperate and began suspecting each other and even their friends of abducting Leg, but the police were certain that the mini woodsman have simply gotten lost. He was never found. Number 8. According to Peninsula Daily News, Olympic National Park in northern Washington state has a feature that's not as majestic as its mountain views. At least 4 hikers have mysteriously disappeared from the area in the past 25 years, one of whom was 73-year-old John Devine. In 1997, Devine planned to take a hike in the park from Mount Baldy. The trail is a tough 24 miles, or 39 kilometers, and though Devine was elderly, he was also an experienced long hiker. Devine was camping with his friend Greg Balzer. They split up on the day that Devine went missing. Balzer went off to hunt while Devine took off for the day to hike. Devine never returned. The fruitless search for Devine lasted a full week until a rescue helicopter crashed and killed 3 people and injured 5 others. By that time, weather conditions had deteriorated, making the chances of finding Devine slim. Friends and family said Devine wouldn't want to pull out people in danger on his behalf, and the search was called off. The search helicopter's crash is as mysterious as Devine's disappearance, though. Before takeoff, the pilot used a hand signal indicating that he was going to wait 5 minutes for conditions to improve before attempting it. A moment later, the helicopter departed vertically without warning and crashed into the side of the mountain. Number 9. At 8 a.m. on a July day in 2004, David Gonzalez asked his mother if he could have the car keys. There was a box of cookies in the car, and he wanted a treat. The car was only 50 yards or 46 meters away, and his mother watched him as he walked to the parking lot near their Big Bear Lake campsite in Northern California's San Bernardino National Forest. She turned her back for a second, and when she looked again, Gonzalez was gone. His mother reported that she heard no sound at all when her back was turned, though she did see a beige truck speeding out of the campground around the time that her son went missing. Since there were no signs of abduction, authorities did not pursue that lead. The cookies that Gonzalez went to get were still in his family's locked van, so he never made it to the car. Rescue teams in San Bernardino County scoured the woods for Gonzalez. They found no signs of struggle or anything. The search went on for 9 days, but rescuers never found him alive. Almost a year later, hikers stumbled upon the boy's remains about a half a mile from his family's campsite. Authorities chalked up this to a mountain lion attack, but how could a mountain lion have silently dragged a 9-year-old boy a mile without leaving any blood or signs of struggle? Number 10. Pirata Tron was a 25-year-old Canadian Army reservist who disappeared from Australia's Kosciuszko National Park, located in the southeastern state of New South Wales. Tron was studying abroad in Australia in May 2013 when he decided to take a 1,700-mile or 2,700-kilometer road trip from the Gold Coast of Melbourne. Tron rented a van, drove to the park's Charlotte Pass in the snowy mountains, and no one has seen him since. The search for Tron began when the rental company discovered that the van wasn't returned. Tron hadn't told anyone what route or side hikes he was planning, and the search may have started days or even a week after he went missing, since it was the rental company that first reported the disappearance. Searchers figured out his hike plans by looking at the search history at a laptop they recovered from his van. Tron's family hired private researchers after Australian authorities called off their search only after 2 weeks. The investigators used tower data from Tron's phone and a trained dog to track his trail to the treacherous area called the Western Fall Wilderness. Just 1 day before his van was due back to the rental agency, Tron embarked on a difficult and time-consuming hike in snowy weather. Why would a trained military reservist make a choice like that? Despite a private search that went on for over a year, Tron's body has never been recovered. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. These cases are definitely some of the most anomalous and unexplainable that I found. If you have any recommendations of cases that you would like to see on this channel, please leave them down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel and make sure you have those notifications on. I upload multiple videos a week on all things scary and unknown in the woods.